Welcome to the podcast. The Aging Queen. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. And welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Aging Queen. My name is Louie Canetti, and I'm here with the wonderful and precious Dr. Kristen. How are you?
Hi. Hello.
It was nice off air. We were just reminiscing, talking about old days and good things to come. So yeah, it's always nice. It's a great time to chat with you.
Yeah, I feel the same.
So today's episode is about mental health. Wanted to bring Dr. Kristen on to chat a little bit about mental health as we're all going through some things post COVID. I think the gay community, LGBTQ plus community, is also going through some things. It's always been an issue, mental health, just because we grow up in environments that are not friendly most of the time, toxic and triggering. So, um, yeah, Dr. Kristen, you want to take it over, and how should we start?
I was doing a little bit of research, looking up some statistics,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I both know that mental health issues, depression, suicidality, that it's higher among the LGBTQ community because of all
Mm-hmm.
the extra challenges that they have
Yeah.
to kind of go through. But I found some statistics. So it says somewhere between 30 and 60% of lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, or transgender people deal with anxiety and depression at some point in their lives. So
Yeah.
30 to 60%, that's quite a lot. And
It's a lot.
this rate is 2 to 3 times higher than that of their straight or gender conforming counterparts. Yeah, so it's significantly higher.
It's significantly higher, and I think I had. I will be honest. I had panic disorder early on. I and it was This is a little story. So I got my first panic attack in choir class in high school, and I didn't know what was
Oh,
going on. I was literally I was just soaked in sweat, and my heart was racing, and I thought I was going to die. And I was it was at the beginning of choir class. Everyone was like putting their bags away and stuff, and then just started feeling these symptoms, and I walked right towards my teacher and I said, I don't feel so good. I think I need to go to the hospital. And she looked at me and saw that I was, almost looked like I was having a heart attack, and she sent me to the nurse's office, and they called 911 right away. They thought it was a heart attack.
wow.
Yeah.
Did anything
So,
trigger that? Like it was
well,
at the beginning of choir class, you said?
being
Oh,
gay
being
triggered that because it was my
oh.
senior year, and it was around Christmas time, and the stress, it was all stress factors, but also it's being gay, and the uncertainty of the future. Okay, so I had to go to therapy for years. I went to Georgetown Medical School. I had like we did biofeedback. It was like really intense, and I was my own detective. I didn't know I had anxiety attacks, or it was actually panic disorder that I got diagnosed with, until I went to this wonderful doctor in DC, an older man, and he said, I think you might have panic disorder. And I didn't know what this was. This was mid 90s. I mean, you got to think this was like 1995. It wasn't so prevalent, and there wasn't social media. No one knew what this was. And if you told them, they kind of laughed at you. Um, but I went to at least 7, 8 doctors, and no one knew. All my blood work, everything turned out normal, but no one knew what was going on until this doctor recommended that I go to a psychiatrist. And when I went through that, and it was a residency program, because George Town Medical Center has residents, right?
Hmm.
So I had the two. I had the my main psychiatrist, but the one who I talked with the most was the resident. And she asked me the question that no one's ever asked me, and it was the first time I ever dealt with. Imagine I was just freshman in college at this time. I never had to deal with my sexuality at all. And she goes, "Do you think that you are gay or are you know,
Hmm.
homosexual?" I don't know how she put it, but basically said, "Are you gay?" And I was kind of like, "Oh no, no, no." I was immediately defensive. I said, "No, no, I'm not gay." And she goes, "Okay." And she wrote something that I would love to see her notes. I would love to see her notes to see what she wrote down because she kinda just took, like, a little she made a little jerk reaction with her face and wrote down something, and that was it. She never asked anything more. We focused more on the biofeedback, which for people who don't know, it's really when they hook you up to these kinda wires on your chest and stuff and your arms, and you look at a monitor and you try to with breathing techniques, try to, bring down your heart rate, you know, by yourself.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Huh.
yeah, I had really I did this all by myself, guys. This is like my parents didn't drive me in it to this. My sisters didn't know. I did this all by myself. I got insurance by myself at 18. I had to do this
Wow.
all on my own. Yeah, no one helped. Not to say that because they didn't want to. It was just I come from an immigrant family. It's not I'm the 4th kid, kinda, it's like I'm not their priority.
Ah,
So, that's how it was. It was like if I didn't do it, no one would do it for me, so
wow.
but it's because I was gay, and it's because, um, all this stuff is I didn't know if I was gonna go to college, and what would I expect in college, and how am I gonna and I knew inside that I would that I was different, and that at some point, I felt so bewildered because at some point I would have to, change and become my authentic self, and I didn't know if I was strong enough.
Huh.
You also wanna be in environments that are safe for that kind of coming out process, so, yeah, so it was
Wow.
tough, and
Wow.
I didn't really realize it until I went through all this, and I came out. I was forced out in college, but in a nice way, in the theater department. Um, and then I just flourished. After that, I flourished and, had a
Oh.
really good college experience thereafter. So my freshman year kinda sucked, um, and, after that I mean, it didn't suck, it was just, I only had really one bad experience with my floor mates that, there was a really bad bullying experience, that we'll talk about in another episode. But,
Uh,
yeah, basically, it's all because of that. So, point of my story is, this stuff is real, and it messes with your head when you, aren't living your authentic self in your life, you know? You feel very lost. You feel that the uncertainty is, it's too much to handle, and, so I think, if anyone can learn from my story, I would just say try to deal with the issue head on and find that help like I did. If I could see that doctor again that diagnosed me and helped me, I would give him a big hug and say thank you, because he changed my life. That those symptoms were coming whether whether I wanted them to come or not, so he helped me kind of deal with them, and it worked.
wow. What an impressive, what a like inspirational story. I mean,
Yeah,
that's incredibly impressive that you were able to navigate that whole system all by
yeah.
yourself at
Oh,
the age
yeah.
of 18, including getting health insurance, paying
Yes.
for everything that the insurance didn't pay for.
They were pretty
Um,
good. It was, I still remember it was Optimum Choice,
oh, wow.
and, because you're so young, the premiums, it was like $150 a month. I was a
Okay.
server at Chili's, I could afford it. It was a
Huh.
different time, things didn't get crazy expensive until the, early 2000s, but in the '90s, things were pretty manageable.
Huh.
Gas was like 95 cents a gallon, remember?
Yeah, I do remember that. 98 cents a gallon
Yeah,
where I
my
grew
rent
up.
was like
Yeah,
$300 a month for
I
the room.
know. I know. Everything is so much more expensive now.
Yeah, so anyway, it was, a different time, but what, what didn't change is that you still have to, go through these chapters in life and coming of age, and uncertainty really affects you, especially when you're gay and you don't know if your future is going to be a positive one.
Well,
Anyway.
so question for you. So you, after you came out and you
Hmm.
were true to your authentic self, did the panic attacks stop? Did they
they came
decrease
they
or stop
came less
altogether?
often, but then what happened is I started realizing patterns. So a lot of them, see, my panic, um how can I say, materialize in different ways. So sometimes it would be just feeling shocks throughout my body or numbness. Other times would be I would get, little tings and stuff on my head. Other times it'd be like hyperventilating or like, so that's what really freaked me out, because when it was more of the breathing stuff, um, that I didn't like. So now I just take deep breaths and I control it. I haven't had one in many years. I feel anxious. Anxious is very different, and anxiety attacks are very different than panic disorder. Very different. You can have anxieties and you can have an anxiety attack, but panic disorder, it manifests in different ways. The symptoms change, and it's almost like um, that anxiety is leaving your body in different forms. And it'll manifest in different ways. So every kind of year you just realize, oh, that's because that's my panic. That's the anxiety. That's not a symptom of something else. um
Wow. So they did get better
they
once you
got
came out.
better. I did a lot of these antidepressants, which for me it didn't help. I think one helped. I don't want to say the name of it, and it helped for a little bit. But what I didn't like from those pills is it numbed you,
Yeah.
and it numbed you to a point where you don't want. There's no sexual desire, and there's no real. You just feel nothing. So instead of feeling overwhelmed or feeling panicky, you just don't feel anything. So uh, I I also um, I think that's also when I started smoking a lot more. So the smoking was like a self-medicating thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
to calm you down.
it calms me down, but the thing is, it also, and through the years, it gives you more anxiety. It's a double-edged sword because,
It is. Yeah, it's
right?
a stimulant. It's a stimulant, so it makes you more jittery.
Yeah. So for the first few seconds, it would calm me down, and then I would get anxious again, and it would be just a cycle. Um,
Yeah.
so it's almost like putting out a constant fire with fire,
Yeah.
you know?
I do just want to say that the antidepressant medications, uh, it's the same in general. We use typically the same medicines for anxiety and for depression,
Mhm.
which is convenient because a lot of people have both of those simultaneously, and we can give them one med that treats both. And in general, um, the side effects are decreased libido,
Yeah.
erectile, like some erectile dysfunction. So not just do you have a decreased desire for sex, but when you do want to have sex, you might have some problems achieving an erection or maintaining an erection. And then like you said, like numbness, kind of just feeling overall numb. Those are side effects that some people do experience. I've heard those, several times in the past from patients. Other side effects are like nausea, diarrhea, GI upset. but that typically goes away within the first month or so of using the meds.
Yeah.
And then some people experience things like disorientation or dizziness, like kind of random one offs like that.
Right.
But the main side effects that people notice and complain about are erectile dysfunction, decreased libido, and feeling numb.
Yeah.
Um, but if that's the case, then you can switch to a different one, like you did. Sounds like you tried a
Yeah.
couple different ones,
Yeah.
um,
Some
and
are
you can
better.
go.
Some react. Some people react better to whatever's
Yeah,
going
and
on.
like so, I don't want to discourage people right off the bat from
No.
saying like,
Yeah.
don't try it. It's going to make it hard to have an erection. That might happen, but if it does happen on one of them, then we can switch you over. You can be switched over to another one that might not happen with. And so,
Absolutely.
and
And
there's also combinations of two that people can use together, things like that.
it's you'll know too, like, but I think a lot of people who take these for these, how can I say it? You need it at least for a period of time,
Hmm.
because it makes, even though you're numb, it makes you feel a little more reassured and stable. That's how it, out of my personal experience. Um,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I
And
but I didn't want to be on it forever, and I know some
right,
people are on it
right.
for a very long time.
And there's many different ways to handle that. Someone can be on it for 6 months or 1 year
Mhm.
while they're going through therapy and
Yeah,
learning how to process their emotions in a healthier way, learning how to, like you said, like,
I
become
was on it for
comfortable
like
with your.
almost 2.5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. So like you can be on it for, for that's a relatively short amount of time.
Mhm.
You can be on it for even less. If you can master, if you can learn how to handle your, like if one can learn how to handle their panic attacks through meditation, through mindfulness, through breathing exercises, through like recognition of triggers and avoiding those triggers, like and therapy can help with all of that stuff.
Yeah,
And so you can be on the meds while you're going through therapy, let's just say, for example, and then once you learn how to control it without medication, you can go off the medication. So
yeah,
just to further emphasize your point, which is that you just because you go on it doesn't mean that you have to stay on it forever. a
right,
lot of a lot of people go on it with the intention of like coming off in a year after they've gone through therapy.
right. Yeah, no, it gives you, it gives you that extra. For me, it gave me that extra calmness. I just felt like not so anxious all the time, because the problem with panic disorder for me, it was once you have one, you actually had the fear of having another one. So
Yeah.
it was more the fear of having that, and feeling that way than anything else. But when I actually had the panic attack, I was okay because I knew it wasn't going to last too long. And then there's such a great feeling afterwards, I have to say. There's like a
Nah.
release of chemicals or something where I just felt it. First, you feel cold, you feel warm, then cold again, and you just feel like you just ran like a marathon. Um, I mean, I've never ran a marathon, but I've ran from my panic. So it's like running from a tiger, trust me. And you just feel so calm afterwards.
Hmm.
So,
Oh, it's
it's,
interesting.
yeah, yeah,
It's almost like the body is like healing you, like getting rid of all your built up anxiety.
that's what it was. I mean, that's how I felt my body was doing. And it would manifest in different ways. So, but,
What do you mean by in different ways? What do you
okay,
mean by
so
that?
tingling. So sometimes
Yeah.
symptoms I would have tingling, numbness. Other times that wouldn't happen, but I would have like little, like almost like fireworks things go off in my head.
Oh, okay.
And then I wouldn't have those. After 6 months, that'd be over, and then it would be. Then the other times would be hyperventilating. That was the worst part. That happened for like 2 years, and then Yeah, and then
I
other
love how
wor
you describe it. It's just so funny. The
yeah.
casualness with which you describe it. I
So
love it.
the symptoms changed constantly, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I would say, yeah, I mean, God, there's so many I can't even think of now, but every time I would think or just pains in different places, you know? And you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's my anxiety. That's not really the pain. It's not, the big C. It's freaking panic," you know? Um I don't
Well,
know
it's
where
in
this came from. I think maybe you can help us if some people are more predisposed than others, but I do know from my personal growth, first thing, it gets better with aging, um, and you learn more about yourself, and what helped me, can I tell you what really helped me?
yeah.
Is saying, "Fuck it." It's like,
Huh.
if I'm gonna die on that plane, I'm gonna die on that plane. That's it. Who cares? And what? What's the worst that can happen? Okay, you die, you wouldn't even notice. So like the worrying, that constant anxious mind, I became a prisoner of my own mind and my own thoughts because every time I started getting agoraphobia too, because I had panic disorder with agoraphobia. So there was a time in my senior year in high school that I would get into the car and then I'd start having all these crazy intrusive thoughts that I was going to get in a car wreck and I couldn't go more than a mile, then I'd have to turn back and then I'd feel safe again. So then it was like I'm okay in my, if I stay in the house I'll be okay, you know. So it got to that point, where it was just very unhealthy. Um
How did you
so
get past that agoraphobia?
the therapy,
Okay.
little by little, being having to go. The good thing is that I was at an age where you have to go to school, and it was then you have to go to college. So, but there were things. Let me just tell you, my life, like I always thought I would be a different person if I didn't have this. And people listening who have this or who have had anxiety attacks where it's detrimental, they will understand what I'm about to say. There are a lot of things in life, a lot of opportunities that I've turned down because of my panic disorder, because of fear,
Mm.
because I've had either the fear of dying or the fear of something bad happening to me or the fear of having a panic attack. So, and then when you let go, that's when you really start living. And you say, "Fuck you, panic disorder. Okay, I'm not gonna let you take over my life." And then that's when you feel stronger. And if you have a panic attack, they get shorter, and you get much more. You get smarter on what the triggers are and how to deal with them. And that's where I'm at now. You know.
That's so great. And like I've seen that too in my patient population that as
Mhm.
people get older,
Yeah.
they learn they the panic attacks decrease because they learn how to handle it better, and they learn wisdom, they learn maturity, and they can better calm themselves down,
Yeah.
you know, because they're more practiced at
Right.
it, basically, it
Yeah.
just takes practice. And then also a lot of times people will have one or two panic attacks and then never again.
They never again. Yeah.
They go years and years, maybe the rest of their life.
Right.
I don't know that. I've never, but like I know I have lots of patients who have had one or two, and now it's been like 4, 5, 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
and they haven't had another one yet. And
Right.
so, so like just because you've had one or two doesn't mean that you're doomed to have them for the rest of your life. They can just be a blip,
Mhm.
which is reassuring.
Yeah. No, I mean, my early 20s, I had a lot of them.
But
And
I do
uh,
think that, like, if someone is feeling just sort of anxious, every day or every other day, or depressed, then I think, going to talk to a doctor about it,
mhm.
and then talking about, there's really there's two treatments, there's two forms of treatment for these, and it's talk therapy and medicine.
Right.
And you can do one or the other or both based on your preference. um, but both at the same time has been shown to be like kind of the most effective. But it's also very reasonable that people just try talk therapy if they want to
Right.
before starting a medicine. That's like, if it's really bad, if you've waited really long and like it's like your anxiety or depression is like really bad when you first present to the doctor,
Mhm.
then maybe you would be a candidate for starting both therapy and meds at the same time. But
Mhm.
if it's just mild or medium anxiety or depression, it would be very reasonable to just try the talk therapy first and
Right.
see if that's enough. um, and then if it's not enough, if it's not helping, then you could consider adding on the medication piece for a period of time. But
So why are
yeah.
some minds more, predisposed to this worrying, these worries and these anxious minds? Why are some people have more of an anxious mind than others?
Oh my gosh, I have
Is
no
it a
idea. I don't
chemical
think I don't
thing?
think I don't think medicine. I don't know. I don't know if doctors even know why some people
Mm,
are more inclined to have anxiety than others. I think, I mean, this is just me hypothesizing. I think in part it's maturity.
mhm,
Like we see it. I'm a doctor in the military, and so there's a lot of kids here who are like 18, 19 years old. Came from not great upbringings,
right.
and they have anxiety, at
Wow.
18, 19, because I don't, and this is just my hypothesis, like, because they didn't really have a robust, like, they didn't really learn
Support
how to
system.
cope.
Yeah,
Yeah, they didn't really learn resiliency,
right,
like from their family. They didn't really learn how to overcome, how to cope, how to bounce back, how to minimize, disaster, how to
right,
be optimistic, like how to deal with these things for, like, very well from their
right.
family, and then they get put into, what is a stressful situation, being living, like having to have a job at 18, having to live away from your family. They have stressors on them, and they don't really know how they have it, but they don't have the practice of having learned how to deal with those stressors,
Yeah,
and so they have
I think when
anxiety.
it comes to identity, it's very different though, at least because it's something that no one can teach you. When you grow up gay and you're not even honest with yourself about it, it's something it's bottling up. It's a volcano ready to it's gonna burst because you're literally living a lie.
Yes.
And when you're living a lie, you can only lie to yourself for so long. And that's why the coming out process is so important. We had a whole episode about this. It is more for other people, but it's also for you to stop lying to yourself and just saying, fuck it. This is who I am. Uh, would it be
Yeah.
easier to be straight? Absolutely. Every gay person will tell you that. The world is not our friend. It's like, it's getting better. It's at a really good place in certain areas. But it would make things so much easier if we were straight. It's just we weren't born like that. So
Yeah.
why am I gonna go against, it's the same thing as a straight person trying to be gay for a very long time. You can make a choice, but the choice that comes from within is a natural thing. It's a natural feeling. Just like straight people feel that natural feeling for, a heterosexual relationship. So, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think the identity thing was more for me. It wasn't about that things were so stressful. It was about being gay and having uncertainty, living life as a gay person.
So I found something,
Oh, and
in an
I'm just
article.
adding to
Oh, go
this
ahead.
that my sister's gay. She wasn't out during that time, and um her friend died of AIDS shortly thereafter.
Like her
Um,
partner or her
no,
friend?
it was a friend. It was a male
Okay.
friend. This is like the mid '90s. This is still very
Yeah.
much people who went to college in the '80s were very highly affected by the AIDS crisis. So it's you got to think when you're a kid growing up and you're gay. It's like what we said about the feeling of X-Men, you feel like a mutant,
Yeah.
and the only other people that understand you are other mutants.
You feel marginalized.
Right, and it's scary because people are trying to control you, trying to ostracize you and make you into a demon that you're not.
So I found some interest, um, from a couple of different articles, some points that you actually have touched on, or that you actually have elaborated on
Mhm,
completely. But we talked about how the chance of having depression, um, and or anxiety and suicidality is 2 to 3 times higher in the LGBTQ community.
wow,
And it says that factors that contribute to that, are what we sort of have already been talking about: risk
mhm,
factors for depression and suicidality among gay men. This is specifically gay men.
mhm,
Um, are accepting one's own homosexuality, so be
mhm,
accepting yourself, having your family accept you,
mhm.
social cohesion, so having friends, like having society
Yeah.
accept you.
For me, the social sorry to interject,
Yeah, yeah.
my family was more important, meaning my chosen family, you guys, my friends, were more important to me in my 20s than my, nuclear natural family.
Is that because we accepted you and they didn't?
Yes,
Or
because there was
yeah,
nothing it was easier to deal with, there was more commonalities, there was less judgment, and you can actually it was I don't know, I think your friends are your chosen family.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there's like multiple facets of feeling comfortable. Like,
Right,
you have to feel comfortable with yourself. You have to feel you want your family to feel comfortable, and then you want your larger community around you to, you want to
right.
feel included. One of the other risk factors was feeling belonging to
Mhm.
or alienation from
Mm.
the gay community.
Oh, yeah.
And then stigma, and or discriminations, and then bullying,
Yeah.
are all risk factors. And so I know I've heard you talk about in previous episodes about how for a period of time, you, like, other gay men were like the ones who were the meanest to you. Like, you didn't
Yeah.
feel welcome in that environment. Um, so these are risk factors that it sounds like are very common among gay men that
Yeah.
contribute to higher rates of depression. And you've experienced quite a few of these.
Yeah, I have.
And then it says here, this is a Canadian study, so this is Canada, but reported that 47% of gay men have experienced harassment, 42% bullying, 16% workplace discrimination, and 13% physical violence because of their sexuality.
Yep.
And then this is the last thing I'm going to read to you. It says concealment of one's identity can be a strategy adopted by some gay men to ward off potential discrimination and violence.
Oh, I mean,
However,
we do this, all the time, and,
yeah,
I
conceal your
I have a
identity.
different voice. When I talk with
Ah,
you, I have a different voice than when I talk to, Robbie and, James, and it's I don't know, you can call it a gay voice or not gay voice, but we change with who in our environment or who our audience is, because if I'm in a place where it's very staunch heterosexual, I'm not going to be so fluid with my with my language and my actions. I'm gonna straighten it up.
I think to a degree, I think that we all respond to our environment. Like, if I'm at a work
Right.
function, I might be a little bit more, like, buttoned up,
Yeah.
and a little bit less funny, a little bit less myself than if I'm hanging out with my sister and my
Of
friends.
course. Yeah.
If I'm with people I'm meeting for the first time, even if they're just so, like, even if they're not work related, I'm still going to be a little bit more, you know, a little bit
Formal.
less myself, a little more formal. But so I think we all have these multiple sides to each other that we feel
Exactly.
comfortable, displaying. But but I do think that it's good that there is an environment in which you feel that you can be completely yourself.
Yeah, and that's why in other episodes with Robbie and James, we discussed on how gay bars are still relevant and they're still quite important. Especially for younger gays coming out. It's a safe place, and it's a place where you thoroughly can feel like it's almost like a dog park for dogs, let's just say.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a place where you can run wild and be yourself and sniff as many butts as you want. It doesn't matter, you're not getting judged.
Yeah, it's important. You want to feel like you want it to be normalized.
Yeah.
You want to feel like, and it's interesting. Like in medicine, um, one of the standard questions that we ask people now is, do you have like what we ask them? Do you have sex with men, women, or both?
Mhm.
We don't ask, are you gay? Are you a lesbian?
Yeah.
This the standard way of asking that question is, do you have sex with men, women, or both? And so like
What are most
and
people saying?
it depends. Most people are heterosexual in my patient population, but not everybody. We just normalize the question, we standardize the question, and so we normalize it. And so I think there we are trying
Kinsey
to make it normal, all the
Kinsey said that,
options.
we're on a spectrum, sexuality is a spectrum, and that no one is truly homosexual or truly heterosexual. Some people lie somewhere on that scale in the middle, or you can be towards, more heterosexual or more homosexual. So,
Yeah, it was interesting. Like when I was in med school, we had a talk on LGBTQ, like sexual preferences
mhm,
and sexuality, and all of us had to stand up,
mhm,
and we did this like little sort of like dance that I still
mhm,
remember, and we had to sort of point to our heads and say, "This is how we identify." Point to
mhm.
your essentially your genitals and say, "This is my sex at birth," and then point to your heart and say, "This is who I love." And
Aw,
all three of those are independent of each other.
right.
Like you assume there's a connection. Like you have a penis, and so you were born a male at birth, therefore you identify as a male, and therefore you love women. But it's not that way. Like all three of those are separate
Yeah,
factors, and they move independently of each other.
yeah,
So it was an interesting concept. Like they're not connected really.
yeah. I think
Um,
some of the strongest people on this earth are trans people. Because if gay people have it bad, trans people
yeah,
have it worse.
have it worse.
They're
Yeah,
much less in population. There aren't really that many role models, and, they're publicly by even public figures, they're being,
just absolutely vilified.
demonized.
Yeah,
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 and it's really disturbing because when you actually feel like what you said, when you feel that you're living in the wrong body, and there's a way out of that, just like there's pills that help with everything else, okay? There are pills that lower your blood pressure, and these are modern technologies, and that will help you be the authentic self that you are. Um, that's amazing, and it should be used for that purpose, and there should be no shame to it, And if it's a nationalized healthcare, it should be a part of, the healthcare plan that you get, the transitioning. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm a big believer in trans rights, and it's common sense. I just can't believe a lot of these public figures and even comedians um, are not. Are not on the bandwagon or not even on the bandwagon. They're going against it. They're actually being villains themselves and hating people. Why are you spewing hate,
I think that um, I'm also obviously a strong supporter of transgender rights. Um, I have a few transgender patients. I think that part of the challenge is that, if they want to have surgeries, like top surgery or things like that, then those are expensive,
Mhm.
and so they have to have health insurance, and the health insurance has to cover that.
Mhm.
Um, I would imagine if they are diagnosed with what's called gender dysphoria, where you
Mhm.
feel like your body isn't right, like that you feel like your how you identify doesn't match how what your genitals and
Yeah.
things like that, then the treatment would be like top surgery or bottom surgery, and that
Right.
should be covered by your insurance, because at that point it's considered a treatment.
Right.
And it's elective, it's an elective surgery, but other elective surgeries like vasectomies,
Right.
those are covered by health insurance, so um
Why wouldn't this be? Exactly.
yeah, so I mean, this one really should be too. If you're being fair about it, this one should really also be covered by health insurance, especially because it's a treatment for a diagnosis
I mean,
that you have.
the thinking that people would actually go against the grain to live a different life that's not authentic to themselves on purpose is just
Right.
ridiculous. It's like, why
Yeah.
would like I said before, it's like, why would someone who's trans do this to themselves, you know? They're not doing this to themselves because they think it's funny. They're doing this to themselves because they're going in the right direction to live their authentic self, their
Hmm.
authentic life, and they just have you as an obstacle. That's it. Because
Yeah.
they're just trying to live their best life. And if there's modern medicine out there to help them, they should take advantage of it. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous how people think like, oh, they're just, well, why do you think that you think they just want to like change genders because for the whim of it? I don't get it. It's like, no, they're doing this because they feel like they're trapped in a different body.
Right. Like, it would be so much easier if
Right.
they could just conform. It
Yeah.
would be so much easier for them. And so the fact that they are taking this incredibly difficult route indicates how strongly they feel about this, and how, and
And how they
that they're
feel
not just
unnatural in that state with all
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah,
And that's sort of
absolutely.
testament enough to how strongly they feel like an alien in their own body, that they are willing to accept all of this bullying, all of this public scrutiny,
Yeah.
to all of this pain, and to change it.
Mm.
um but so this one last thing I wanted to read to you. It says
Yeah.
concealment of one's identity can be a strategy adopted by some gay men to ward off potential discrimination and violence. However, this
Yep.
strategy can be exhausting and has been reported to increase the risk of emotional distress among gay men. It is therefore self-acceptance is therefore a critical element for a gay man's well-being, as is being accepted by others.
You
So
know,
this is kind of the
Ru
point we keep coming back to.
yeah, and RuPaul says it perfectly. She says, "If you ain't gonna love yourself, how's anyone else gonna love you?"
Yeah.
So, you really have to, and the journey can be long. The journey can be long. I'm learning this, I'm 46 and I'm still going through it. You have to love yourself and warts and all, you know? Um, and I think when you're young, you always think that first thing someone that everyone else is better than you, smarter, they're more they're fit and they're more attractive. It's only when we look back at pictures that we realize, God, I was living the life and I was so thin and cute and you're like, what was wrong with me? Why was I thinking all those intrusive thoughts and negative thoughts? It's just crazy how sometimes youth is not your friend. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, perspective is such a
Right.
key part of being happy. Like the the I read this book a while ago where there was a woman who was kind of given, it was like this magical book, and she was given the opportunity to jump from one life to the other to try and find her like perfect happy life.
Yeah.
And she ultimately just kept jumping from one life to another, and like nothing ever suited her. And then ultimately she realized that the place isn't the prison, it's the perspective. It's
Mm,
your perspective. And so, like if you can look at your life and say like I like myself. Like
right.
I am happy with who I am. I am not perfect, and these are things that I want to work on. But overall, I like my character. I
Yeah,
like who I am. Like you work towards surrounding yourself with good people,
right,
and you say like, I don't have the perfect job right now, but I'm taking classes to work towards getting a job that I like more. Like it's all about perspective. It's all
right.
about accept like feeling
Growing.
yeah, like feeling like maybe you're not in the perfect situation right now, but that you're making changes to make it better in some ways, and
Yeah.
that like in the future things can get better. And
Mhm.
that kind of just perspective of,
It
of
gives you hope.
accepting, yeah, it gives you hope, and it gives you power to think that it makes you feel empowered to say
Yep.
like because I can change my perspective on this situation,
Right.
and therefore I can make this thing that felt so hopeless feel more hopeful simply by changing my perspective on it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with age and maturity and practice and being around others who demonstrate that ability and who kind of teach it to you, or at least demonstrate it in themselves, that you can learn by example from. So the more like resilient, the more optimistic, the more, mature
Yeah.
your friends are, that you inherit those qualities or you learn those qualities from them.
I always found that, you know where you are in life by the friends you surround yourself with at that moment. So if you're hanging out with people who drug themselves, um, who drink too much, who are not focused or not living a healthy life, and you're doing the same thing, you're attracting the same thing that you are feeling inside. So it's a time to take a step back, look inside, and realize, what do you want out of this life? This life's so short, that you just you don't have many moves, especially as you grow older. The chess game continues, but there are less pieces and less moves to make. So use the time wisely before you get checkmated. If that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that at least my perspective on things like alcohol, like, I think all in moderation. I think as long as you're not drinking
yeah,
to forget that you don't like yourself,
self-medicate. Yeah,
as long as you are drinking just for fun, or I mean, this is just my opinion, in moderation. I think that
yeah.
alcohol is okay, as long as you're not using it as a like a
Mm,
yeah, a way to self-medicate, as long as
yeah,
you're using it just recreationally, just for fun. But if you do if you do feel like you don't like yourself,
right.
um that is going to just cause the ripple effect. It's going to affect how you feel about yourself. It's going to affect the romantic relationships that you can find with others. It's going to affect, like every aspect of your life. If you don't like yourself, it's going to affect everything else. And so, learning to like yourself, learning to accept yourself, like that is the number, as you said, that is the number one. It's the cure, essentially, for a lot of these mental health
Yeah.
issues.
We all have it inside. The cure's always been inside. It's it helps a lot to face your demons, face your fears. At least it helped me, and to realize that the anxious mind is just because we are afraid of uncertainty. We are afraid of what other people are going to think of us. We are afraid of of everything, and this is why some people choose religion. Religion helps a lot of people. It's hurt a lot of people also. But if you take anything that helps you, whether it be yoga or exercise, um, something productive and something where you feel like there's a bigger, kind of bigger reason for living than just, consuming. it helps. So just pick one, pick something and it'll help you. It's helped me, I look at helping others and being present and being more active with my family and friends and being more spiritual and thankful and grateful, and that's helped a lot, So maybe that someone who's listening can use that towards their healing.
Yeah, I think those are all great ideas. So much of it, so much of the treatment, the cure, the therapy, it all comes from within, and only you have the power to change how you feel about yourself.
Yeah,
Therapy can help and counselors can help, but ultimately, like, you have to change your perspective on how you feel about yourself. And this is, to be honest, this is not just a, a a challenge for the gay community. I mean,
right,
it's a bigger challenge for your community,
right.
absolutely, because of all of the identity issues.
Stressors. Yeah,
Yeah, all of the extra challenges, and I don't at all minimize that. It's a bigger challenge. But not liking yourself is a
yeah,
problem that a lot of people face, straight, gay, whatever,
yep,
for because they feel like they're a failure, they feel like, they're not achieving the things they thought that they could achieve. They're not married to the person that they
right,
wanted to be with. Like, there's all these pressures that people put on themselves, and they feel like failures, and it affects them, like how they see themselves, as being
yeah.
worthless,
That's why getting
having no
older is better
value.
because you got less time, you've made peace with your past, and you're just, you're gonna make the best of your life with the time you have left, and there's also a little sense of pressure there. So you might also want to you deal with bullshit in a different way, Um, you go around it real quick and get down to what's important. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think this has
the
been a very insightful conversation with you, doctor. Um,
yeah, the moral
yeah,
of the story is learn how to like yourself. And
exactly. No, it really
that
is.
it will make a huge difference. Learn how to like yourself.
Yeah, and we can talk for hours about this, and that's how people get into abusive relationships because they didn't like themselves enough,
Hmm.
and they got involved with someone that was toxic and narcissistic and all that stuff. So it doesn't always, have to be about the other person. It's always about you, because you have to feel strong. You have to feel, so if not, you're going to attract all these uh toxic people and you know kind of villains. That's not going to help you progress
Yeah.
and grow. So yeah, stay safe
Yeah.
out there, everyone, and thank you again, Dr. Kristen. It's been a pleasure. Until the next one. um,
Absolutely. My pleasure, as
all right.
always.
Well, if you liked our episode today, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I wish everyone good healing, a way forward, and a better future. Thank you. If you or someone you know are in crisis and need help, please reach out to a caring professional at SAMHSA's National Helpline by calling 1 800 662 HELP. That's 1 800 662 4357. Or you can simply text 988 on your phone. More information can be found by going to findtreatment.gov. That's findtreatment.gov. The information provided on this podcast are opinions and are for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice. Consult a medical professional or healthcare provider to seek medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.